All right, everyone. Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Vito DeFilippis. I'm SVP and Practice Leader here at Environics Analytics. And I have the pleasure of introducing our next session, Charging Ahead in the Electric Vehicle Race, How Data and Analytics Powered Up Nissan's ARIYA Launch. It's led by our featured speaker, Francois Lefevre, who's the Senior Manager of Market Intelligence and Corporate Planning at Nissan Canada. Francois has held several impactful roles at Nissan, including the Chief Marketing Manager for the Nissan Leaf. He was instrumental in product marketing, sales, and strategy and the successful launch of the current generation of Leaf in 2018. Today, he's here to share his most recent venture, the launch of the Nissan ARIYA in Canada, and the analytical journey he took to ensure that it is successful in the ever-changing automotive environment. I have had the pleasure of working directly with Francois over the last year on this project specifically, and I can tell you there are very few people more knowledgeable and passionate about the EV market in Canada than he is. We are very fortunate that he offered his time today to participate in our conference. So with that, please let's give a warm welcome to Francois as he prepares to take us through his journey.
All right, thank you everyone. Good morning. Oh, here's your speech video. So yes, thanks for the intro. It's been quite interesting to be working on this product because, again, the landscape, not only the automotive landscape is changing, but specifically the EV landscape is changing constantly, and the consumer is changing constantly right now in Canada. So I'll test the slides here. Here we go. Before jumping into the subject, to give a little bit of context here on our history, most people think that, hey, our first gig was the Nissan Leaf, but it all started in 1947 in Japan when there was an oil shortage after World War II. We created Tatama, and the Tatama was actually a serious car, going 95 kilometers of range, 35 kilometers an hour, and it was used as a taxi until 1951. It was a true production car, not just a prototype. And fast forward to 1996, Nissan came out with another production unit for Japan specifically, the Prairie Joy, which was the very first car equipped with a lithium battery, which is the type of battery used now in EVs today. Our first connection with Canada was the Hyper Mini back in 2000 at the Montreal Auto Show. We had it to demonstrate a little bit of the urban mobility options, and again, that was a production vehicle in Japan for a few years. Then the big day, the world first mass market EV was built in 2010, and arrived in Canada in July 2011. It just happened, my career was at the right spot. I was a field guy for the Ottawa region, and my dealer was actually giving the keys to the very first Leaf at Hunt Club Nissan. So it was really special. At that time in 2011, there was no infrastructure, there was not much going on. So it was cool to see the very beginning of it. And then 2018, we launched the second generation Leaf. And that's where it got really interesting. We listened to our customers and saw that one of the priorities was definitely range, of course, and giving the customer the possibility of either getting a lower range vehicle or higher range. So we had in 19 introduced a secondary battery with a range of 349 kilometers. But if you don't need all that range, you commute around the GTA, you can also opt with a smaller battery which has a range of 240 kilometers. So having that option was key to our customers around the world. And then today, timing of this conference is perfect. We're launching this fall, in the next few weeks, the Nissan ARIYA coming in to your dealer near you. And that's what we're going to discuss, but that's not the only car that we're going to be launching. Of course, we have our Ambition 2030 plan, launching multiple EVs, both on the Nissan and Infiniti side. So just a little intro to the ARIYA. I can't, talk automotive industry and not talk about product. It's pretty cool, especially that particular product. So split in 4 core pillars here to describe it. Modern craftsmanship, meaningful design, right? It has, based on the timeless Japanese, very simplistic but modern design from inside and out. So really great. Purposeful technology. It has the best technology that Nissan has to offer, equipping the car with luxury components like heads-up display and ProPilot Assist. Next pillar is smooth, capable, thrilling performance. Well, it's an EV, right? So you got no engine, so you got no vibration from the engine or noise. So you got sheer comfort with the vehicle. And it has also a lot of power because it has no conventional transmission. So you got 100% torque at 0 kilometers an hour. So amazing performance and comfort with that ride. And the last point, which is key, I think for me, and which I learned in the past few years, is how we talked to our customer constantly since we launched, or just before we launched the Leaf in 2010, and asked them, what do you like about the Leaf or that EV? What would you want us to do next? And we've been able to design and modify the car based on that feedback to talk about to customers, 200,000 customers just for the second generation Leaf back in 2018. So it was really interesting to see, taking that feedback and putting it into practice. Just a quick example, when we were actually selling the first generation Leaf back in 2012, we asked our customers, what do you want? Say, well, don't touch the design. It's a little bit polarizing, but as some people know, a little bit bubbly, Jetson car. But don't touch the design. Who cares about that? Just focus on the range. So in 2015, we launched a booster, right? We went from a 24 kilowatt battery with 133 range to 172, 30 kilowatt. So just that was totally our focus because that's what our customers were asking for. And it's a group of customers across the world, not just Canada or US or Europe or Japan. So that was one of many things that was brought into the design or tech that we put into the first generation, the second generation, this car here, the Nissan ARIYA. So we're right in the middle of an EV revolution in Canada, and that's what makes this industry extremely exciting because nothing really happened in the past 100 years, to be honest. It's an engine where they're more fuel efficient, et cetera, but there's nothing true revolutionary that happened. Last time it happened, it's when it began. It was early 1900. A third of the vehicles were steam, the other third were gas, and the other third, the last 33% was electric. And in 1905, you could actually, in New York, exchange your battery. So you were not necessarily charging your EV, you were exchanging your battery exchange program. So it was quite advanced, but of course, the industry saw and the government saw how easy and cheaper it was to equip all cars with gas. They invested in gas station, and as we know, the rest is history for the next 100 years. So now, if you look at this map here, 2017 shows pretty much the last peak of ICE vehicles or internal combustion engine vehicle. It's only going to come down from that point. So if we reverse that graph and look at not the percentage of EVs, but the percentage of ICE vehicles, the last point, the biggest peak was 2017. So it's only going down from that point. I look at it, of course, on the EV side as a positive point. So our curve is going up in terms of EV for the Canadian market. So if you look at calendar year 22, forecast is about 6%. We think that the industry will sell 6% of all cars, light vehicle, to be fully electric cars. So this was close. Fully electric battery vehicles. So that does not include hybrids or plug-in hybrids. Those are, no fun and games. Like it's really 100% electric cars here. So that curve is quite steep. and our forecasters, we use quite a bit of forecasters to look at that and plan our short and mid and long-term plan here. But not fiscal year, but calendar year 26, we're potentially going to reach 19% in Canada. So it's a big shift, and we need to understand, well, okay, all these cars are arriving from Nissan, from other brands, of course, mainstream and luxury. So how are we preparing customers? How our customers will be ready for it and react to that? So the data is constantly changing every 6 months. So if you look at data from a year or 2 or 5 years ago, it's completely obsolete. This data here, in terms of BEV barriers, so battery electric vehicle barriers for customers, is pretty fresh, and it's not surprising. There's 4 of them, right? 4 big barriers or main barriers, which is it's too expensive, so it's the price, the driving range, the body type. Just a question, hopefully somebody can scream. What is the number 1 and number 2 segments mostly sold in Canada? Is it cars, sedan, or pickup trucks? Just scream it. Yeah. Second biggest segment in Canada is pickup truck. So at the end of the day, that is a key point. We need the body type that customers want to drive. Canadians, I'm generalizing, but Canadians in general don't want sedans. They want crossovers, SUVs, pickup truck. And they're coming, but that's part of the issue for the past few years. We had mostly cars. And then public, of course, public infrastructure that is growing every day, but in a different pace depending on where you live. From Quebec to BC to Ontario, very different. And I think one thing to point out is if EV education was a priority at multiple levels, most of these barriers, especially those 4, we would have a lot more drivers. So putting aside, of course, inventory issues that we have with the semiconductor, but we would have a lot more people wanting to purchase because you would understand the federal rebates, provincial rebates, especially in Quebec, $12,000 for anybody living in Quebec right now, and the driving range, understanding that you could charge at home for people that do have a home, and there's 8 million of them in Canada, so it's fairly easy to install. And you have as well the segments. Like right now, we're part of the evolution or revolution is having more SUVs and coming into the market. And in the next few years, we see pickup truck arriving soon. So that barrier should come down. And one thing, again, about education is when you see an EV and says, well, it's a small crossover. Yeah, it's maybe a small crossover, but the fact that it does not have a conventional transmission or an engine, you have a lot more space on the inside. So check it out. When you look at a small crossover, you look at it, it's probably more of a mid-size crossover when you go in. So again, part of the challenge and about education when we're talking and selling these products. And EV opinion and consideration, again, we have a lot more details on that, but that's just high-level stats on the buyers in Canada have a positive view on EVs, and they're actually interested in purchasing an EV for the next car at 39%. Those are big numbers, and surprising when there's some provinces that don't even talk about electric cars. So it's pretty interesting to see that. So going to the research, so we're launching this car in the next few weeks, and usually when Nissan launches a car, we take a step back and say, we need to provide insight on who will be the consumer and how can we reach them. And we do that research about a year before the Marcom team actually starts promoting the car. So we do a quali-quant research, and we include as well IPI, which is in-person interviews, really to understand that customer and what they like about the ARIYA, and how's it compared to the competition, price elasticity, et cetera, et cetera. But this project was very different because it was very specific on the pre-sale program. So we did a pre-sale program back in January, and we wanted to know how to promote that pre-sale specifically. So we did a lot very specific scope that we did with Environics, which was quite interesting. And we looked at themes like, obviously, our Nissan Leaf and Leaf owners, ARIYA hand raisers, social values, market demographics, electric vehicle market behaviors. So if you look at our objective, truly analyzing the conquest to capture some of the market share from our competitors, the growth, that's the main part, because most of that EV market is untapped right now, and continue to promote our EV history and EVness at Nissan. So not losing that culture. So identifying the future EV audience. Point number one, of course, it's obvious, growth in EV sales, analyzing that growth and see, well, where is it going exactly? But all the other points, when we look at people looking at fuel efficient vehicles, they're looking at their tech people, they're the first one to jump into the EV, and also the environment, they care about the environment. That also is in constant flux. We see changes in the data. Back in 2019, for example, we had the number one reason by 41%. Actually, that's the true number. It's not a random number. So 41% of Leaf buyers, they bought it for the environment. That shift completely. Like now, it's number 3 reason. We got price. We got engine type as number 1, number 2. Now, so you can see that not that they don't care about the environment, but we're attracting different customer now. So we're truly expanding, and we need to be very careful when we're launching a vehicle like this, because even with a Leaf that didn't change for the past few years, our customer has changed. ARIYA, very different. The Leaf customer will not necessarily purchase the ARIYA, and I'll talk about that later. So here are the target groups here. 8 groups identified for primary groups that we want to promote and reach directly. The green and clean, electric champions, French eco-tech families, mostly in Quebec, and lavish and luxe. And you can see that that's the biggest portion of Leaf drivers as well. Secondary group, hybrid consideration, people that are most likely to jump onto hybrid first as a stepping stone before going to fully EV. And then you got the EV curious families. Aspirational groups, young eco-urbanite, not ready yet. They'll potentially drive an EV, a used one, rent one through Truro, and really promote EVs in their social circle, but not necessarily ready yet to purchase a big ticket item like an EV, fully electric car. Urban efficiency seekers, they're more looking at their balance between being nice with the environment and their wallet. And that's mostly a group that's in Quebec. So just a summary here of which targeted audience matches which group, which is Nissan Leaf owners. Half of it are part of these groups, and ARIYA hand raisers. You got the EV curious families that are part of it. EV opportunity, so people currently driving an EV but not a Nissan EV specifically, and future EV opportunities. So that's in the next 2 years, which is technically now. So primary target groups, so 29% of households, 54% of EV sales. And what I like to say about that is these groups are, especially the people driving EVs, they probably sell more EVs than our dealerships. They're super proud of their car. They love it so much. It's so different from their ICE vehicle that they promote it to everyone. And when somebody taps on their shoulder in the parking lot, they'll turn back and start having a 30-minute discussion on it because they love it so much. They sell cars. So we need not to forget about them. But they're pragmatic. They're not necessarily going to jump and buy an ARIYA or another Leaf. They're currently driving potentially a Chevrolet Bolt or a 2015 Leaf, and they look at it, well, it gives me 200 kilometers of range. Yeah, the ARIYA is beautiful, but I don't need it. But when they're going to talk to their friends and family, they're going to promote the ARIYA, and they're going to sell the ARIYA. indirectly or directly. So very important to reach these people and making sure that they're aware of our pre-sale program. There you go. Secondary target group, I want to focus on the EV curious families. I think, again, timing is everything. We used 2020 data for it, for this project, and did the analysis in 2021 for a February 2022 pre-launch program. So honestly, if we're doing the project again now, I'm sure that the EV curious families are probably part of the primary market. They're ready, because the market has changed so much, and these are the type of people that actually jump in and got really informed on EVs and are ready to make that leap. Hybrid consideration, not so much. I think there's a portion that would be ready now, but they're still more comfortable jumping into a hybrid or plug-in hybrid first. Aspirational, again, I think there's still a shift. There's a bigger proportion now that would be ready to purchase a new EV or an ARIYA, but I think they still stay either as aspirational, secondary, but we definitely need to track them because the young eco-urbanites, even though they won't purchase an ARIYA, they're like our electric champions. They'll promote it. So different strategy for different market. You can see the red dots. It looks like a acne there, but it's obviously a good spread, and that's what's interesting. It's like, well, they don't match and initially from one province to the other. And I wanted to ask you guys, where do you think that where the industry, not just Nissan, sell the most amount of EVs? The two provinces. Scream it out. BC? Yes, la belle province. I'm from Ottawa, by the way. So we sell about 60% of our Leafs for the past few years in Quebec, and the industry sells more than 50% of their EVs in Quebec, and the rest is pretty much all in BC. Ontario is not present. It reached actually 35% back in 2018 when there was $14 offered by the government at the time. So there was a rush to purchase EVs, and then it disappeared. And we're talking mainstream EVs, not luxury, but it's pretty much all Quebec, 60%, about 30% in BC, and the rest in Ontario. So it's quite, and if you look at the difference between the two, very different. British Columbia, always been a very environmental, conscious demo and psychographics. And Quebec, not so much. It's more about education, massive infrastructure, continuously building, Viva Hydro-Québec. And you have as well a rebate that's always been there, always been stable. They changed it this year for the very, very first time from $8,000 rebate to $7,000. So they went down a little bit. And it's combined with the $5,000 from the federal rebate. So Quebec EV buyers could get $12,000 total. So the infrastructure, the education, there's multiple organizations that promotes EV and does test drive on top of dealers like l'AVEQ, l'Association des véhicules du Québec, Véhicules électriques du Québec. So those are massive association that does ride and drive all the time, all across Quebec, just promoting it. So very different reasons, and that's obviously our key focus for the launch of the pre-launch of the ARIYA. And then Alberta and Manitoba, I think it's important to flag them because some people will say, well, Alberta, not interested in EVs. That's totally false. You can see that there's 4 groups, which is surprising, I think, for some. And we've seen a lot of interest in Alberta, even though the infrastructure is not there, but it's being built. And even this weekend, we are participating in an EV show, which never happened before in Alberta. So that's great. We're supposed to send the ARIYA there. Then it was canceled, and we're going to have a dealer meeting in Vancouver in a few weeks, so we have to ship it there. So, but it's really interesting to see that there's a lot of interest. Manitoba, Saskatchewan, not there. There's 2 dots. And their hybrid consideration. And there's many reasons for that. Yes, infrastructure, no education in terms of, or push from the government. And there's also, not necessarily the coal, but also distances. They travel more distance than the rest of Canada. And so they'll jump first into hybrid. So that sort of confirms what we have in terms of stats on top of what Environics provided us, which is really interesting. So just an example, I think you guys are all aware of that review of every single group. So that's an example of the electric champions. And we'll review that thoroughly with our Marcom team to understand that group specifically. And that's one of our first or primary group. And you'll see that they live in Ontario, Alberta, BC, and they use a car as status symbol. So the ARIYA is a match, compare the Leaf, for example. We don't see that with Leaf as much. So understanding that, having this conversation with our Marcom and CRM team is key to develop that strategy, that marketing strategy. And how was it used? Well, I sort of just said it, but anyways. We did CRM review to make sure we have the right message for our current Leaf customers, saying, hey, we want to make sure that you're at top of the list here. You know that on February 3rd, we're launching this pre-sale program, and we want you to be at the front of the line and have the opportunity. So how can we reach them properly? And then as well as conquest, people that are the right conquest people to contact. And we built, of course, or confirmed the ARIYA strategic brief as well for media purchase and media development. So maybe it was too successful. I thought we should have shut it down quicker or not do this research. But it was, I think within a few days, we had to really figure out what we're going to do because the interest was massive. So we pretty much sold everything that we put aside for the pre-sale in 48 hours about. So it was very, very successful. And that also provided us data on who actually purchased or reserved an area. And it was a little bit more on the Quebec side than we thought. It was 66% in Quebec and only 15 to 16%, I think, in BC, so a little bit lower. And you have Ontario coming back with a vengeance. They were over 20%. So that was very interesting to see that. But again, that vehicle is very different from the Leaf. You can almost put an Infinity. There you go. You can almost put an Infinity logo in front of that car. It has all the characteristic power, luxury, comfort that a luxury car has. So we have still a lot of interest in Ontario, which is good. And Ontario is not the same as what it was before, when there was absolutely no infrastructure the past 3-4 years ago. So yeah, just a few beauty shots here. There you go, back end. You can see one of the first car actually it's the first car that we don't have the logo on the car at the back. So it's only our word mark. Just random observation. And then the interior. So for me, that's the highlight. It's not just an interior, it's a lounge. It has zero gravity seats like most of our Nissan have, like really comfortable seats. The Kumiko 2D pattern, a Japanese 2D pattern that we use all across the vehicle, including the front grille, that's beautiful. And everything is really simplistic but futuristic, and everything is focused on providing space to the driver and the passengers. And we don't have a frunk, for anybody that knows what a frunk is. So a frunk is a trunk, but at the front, called a frunk. And we decided not to have a frunk because we wanted to maximize space on the inside, and it would be a lot more useful that way. There's not a lot of people using the frunk right now on the EV space. That's cheap to put their portable charger, but it's not a big space. So we really maximize that space. And there you go. And then see that all the the technology, especially the screens, everything is driver-centric. You don't have a screen on the side that, you have to look on the side to actually see your speed. No, everything is either in front of you, on your windshield, and very simple. And all the buttons, well, most of the buttons, like you see here, they're not buttons, they're haptic touch. They vibrate when you touch the slick surface of the wood paneling. So it's really sleek and simple and modern, and practical. So that's it. But honestly, I would love to probably do the same research with 2021 or even 2022 data and really compare it to see how it changed. So from 2 years ago to now, I'm sure it changed completely in Canada, and seeing if some of the dots have been added even in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. I think that would be an interesting project to do in the next few months. So thank you very much. I'm just going to leave this picture for promo.
I think we have time for a few questions before we move on to the next session. Do we have any questions from the audience? Francois? Yes. Is there a mic?
It's the ones that are ready now to purchase, or sorry, to actually jump into giving their name for a vehicle, right, for the ARIYA. So the primary group are the ones that are ready now to put their name on a reservation site or at the dealers. Oh, here you go. We knew it because of their background in terms of they either they own a Leaf or an electric vehicle, for example. So we knew that they were ready to make that jump. They're the type of people, and you're looking at, when we look at surveys, like, are they also interested in tech? Are they really focused on the environment? So all these questions are key to say, well, they combine with what are they driving now. That's where we determine, okay, this group has the potential to purchase an EV, or, like I said during the presentation, like being actually ready to talk about it, and other people will actually, in their circle of friends and family or neighbors, to jump on and put their name on the reservation. So two reasons, and one portion was people that would actually jump in and reserve the car, and the other is these people will actually promote the ARIYA indirectly or directly, and in their circle would put their name on it.
Any other questions for Francois?
I've been a little curious if you think that the kind of EV revolution you've discussed is kind of an opportunity to bring in new customers who maybe hadn't considered Nissan before, and maybe if this is like an opportunity where brands are going to be grabbing more market share because EVs are new, and so people are exploring other companies and what they're offering and the capabilities and the wider range of differences out there between different brands. Because I know in automotive, brand loyalty is pretty strong. Mm-hmm. So is EV an opportunity to break that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, the answer is yes. Like we saw that competition is good for the EV market because people go into a showroom. Let's say I'm a Ford customer, and go to a Ford showroom and they're presenting the new Ford Mach-E. They'll potentially take a step back and say, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I'll consider the EV, and start talking about to the sales consultant about the Ford Mach-E, and then I say, well, hey, this is new technology. There's other cars out there. They're going to start to do a research, and maybe they'll realize, hey, the ARIYA is more for me because it has more space. It's more comfortable because it's higher up. You know, it's less of a sports car, more of an SUV versus the Mach-E, and then so we can capture and conquest more people with EVs, but it goes both ways, right? If you want something more sportier and you got your midlife crisis and all that, then well, they'll go with a Mach-E maybe, I don't know.
All right, thanks so much, Francois. I really appreciate it. We're at time now, unfortunately, but I'm happy that every time I hear Francois speak, I learn something new about the EV market.